Hey everyone, it's Anne from the Nurture Center. I did a talk recently called Presence Not Presents, which really was because this is a really busy time of year for a lot of people. I think especially here in New Zealand because we're wrapping up the school year. So for parents, it's not only for many of us a holiday time, but it's also going into the school holidays. And everything kind of changes. Lots of us are taking time off work if we're working, or the kids are home more. So I wanted to talk about kind of how to connect with your kids, I guess. And I think Dr. Dan Siegel uses a really cool way of thinking about what's going on in your child's brain. So we can go with our instincts and connect with our children because we know it feels good, but it's also good to know kind of the science behind what's actually happening for a child. So he uses the hand model of the brain, and I think it's just pretty easy to understand. So I'll just quickly explain it. So if you think about your wrist being your brainstem, okay, and this is your brain. And so there's your hand model of your brain, right? The downstairs brain is our more primitive parts of our brain, the reptilian brain, the mammalian brain, those parts of the brain that keep our bodies working, keep our heart rate and our breath. This here, your thumb, is the amygdala, which is where your strong feelings come from, right? So that's all part of the downstairs brain. And then wrapping over top of your downstairs brain is your upstairs brain. And these are the parts that make you uniquely human. So primates of all kinds have a cortex that comes around over the top. But what really makes us uniquely human is this part right in front of our eyes here. And that's where empathy comes from. It's where our ability to stop ourselves from making impulsive decision comes from, right? So what we know is that when we're losing the plot, or as Dan describes it, as flipping your lid. So I think it's a really nice way to think about it. So children are still working to integrate their upstairs brain and their downstairs brain. And when they're having a tantrum or feeling a strong feeling of any kind, even if you wouldn't classify it as a tantrum, and it could be happy feelings too, those hyper-excitable moments, really what's happened is the cortex, the thinking parts of their brain, is not connecting to the feeling part of their brain. So what we need to do is connect to the feeling, whatever that may be, and we do this with as few words as possible. So it's about hugging, it's about eye contact, it's about being physically close, and acknowledging and validating what's going on for them. So if you're going to use words, it might be something like, "Oh my goodness, you are so upset," right? So that's about the end of the words, right? This is not the time to say, "No, we don't talk like that. You need to use your nice words. You need to use gentle hands." It's not the time to instruct. It's just the time to feel, get them to calm down and get that cortex going again. So obviously in the smallest of children, they have more limited abilities to use this thinking part of the brain. So your under threes, they don't have much of that anyway. So you really need to do some of the thinking for them and give them words to match their feelings. So once they're calmed down, whether that's within 30 seconds, 5 minutes, the next day, whatever it might be, that's when you can start to use your words. That's when you can give them words if they're still pre-verbal or quite young, under threes. Obviously, the older your children get, the more verbal they are and the more likely you are to pull the words out of them. But first, they have to be calm. This goes for you too. Who hasn't flipped their lid? I know I have. So think of it that way for yourself too. And yes, you have more of an ability, hopefully, to keep the upstairs and the downstairs brain integrated and working together. And hopefully you can stop yourself when you feel your lid starting to flip. But being gentle with yourself, and then, So I'll talk more in another video about what to do in a little bit more detail, especially when you yourself are flipping your lid. So hope you liked that little discussion about the brain today, just something to get you thinking going into the weekend. Thanks.